Good afternoon. Want to welcome all of you to the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission meeting of April 6, 2006, and want to thank you for joining with us today. We've got a pretty full agenda, and so we wanted to get started. We expect we'll have other members arrive as we get into the meeting, so we'll see some of the chairs fill up here momentarily. As we get started, I want to announce that the meeting is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption live on Metro Cable Channel 14, the Government Affairs channel, on the Comcast, SureWest, and Strategic Technologies cable systems. It's also being webcast live at www.saccounty.net. In addition to being broadcast live, if you want to watch the rerun or if you missed the first time around, it's being repeated this Saturday, April 8th at 12 noon. And a VHS copy is available for checkout from any library branch 7 to 10 days following this meeting. And I note that we have a signer, and so I'll try to slow down a little bit and give her a chance to catch up here. Would also note that members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form and make sure that our clerk gets that so that the chair can call upon those that wish to speak at the appropriate time. And lastly, I would ask that anyone has a cell phone, beeper, pager, other electronic device, please put it on silent mode so that we won't have interruptions during the course of the meeting. And with that, I'll turn to Diane and ask her to call the roll to establish a quorum, please.
Dickinson. Waters. Leary.
Here.
Morin.
Here.
McCarty.
Here.
Collin. McGlashan. Do we have Masuoka for Peters?
Here.
Thank you. Miller?
Here.
Sheedy? Here. Natoli?
Here.
Ex officio McGarvey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Diane. And with that, I would ask that Member Miller please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would.
Sure.
Yeah.
Please join me as we salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, with that, I would ask the clerk, are there any items that we be continuing or dropping from the agenda, or are we going to go with the printed agenda?
Pretty much with the agenda.
Okay, thank you. And with that, then, we'll go right into the first item. You want to call that, Diane?
Yes, we have BestNet Phase 2 agreement between SCCC, Sacramento Educational Cable Consortium, and Comcast, and update.
All right. Mr. Davidson.
Excuse me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bob.
Actually, before I started, I did want to introduce Nakia Pinckney is the new member of the commission staff. She's sitting over in the council chair.
Hi, Nakia.
She joined us. She's a half-time employee. Is the counterpart to Michelle, who's I think have known for a while.
Okay.
So, anyway, welcome, Nakia.
Very good. And if we need to call for legal advice and Harry can't give it, you get to sit in that chair. You get to give us the secondary opinion. So. No, I'm kidding.
And she is going to law school right
now,
you are? So it is quite appropriate.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, welcome aboard, Makia, and we look forward to having you work with the fine staff of the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Commission. So.
And then before I start, I just wanted to say, who said this was a part-time job? I'm just
Didn't take you very long. You're a quick study. It didn't take you very long to find out that it was not, huh?
Okay. Anyway, this item is a report back on the BestNet. We have several things in the package today that I'll point out to you, and then I'll turn this over to Harriet Steiner, who will give you a little bit of a briefing. There's a staff update from Harriet in the package. There's also a draft agreement, so there's been a lot of progress on the agreement. I think we wanted to have a complete agreement at this time, but there's still some deal points that are being worked out with Comcast that I think Harriet will talk a little bit about. There's a letter from Liz Rhodes that pretty much describes the main deal points of this, which is really no different than what was presented to your commission last time. The basic financial commitment is $1.3 million a year for 3 years. It's expected that, and that's for estimated 81 sites. It's estimated that if it takes more than 3 years to build out 81 sites, then actually it could carry over. So it's not just a defined $1.3 million for 3 years and then it goes away if all the sites aren't built. It's an expected commitment that could actually take longer than the 3 years. I also, at the very back of your item 1, the last tab, there were some questions last week about how this fits within, last 2 months ago, how time flies. There's some questions about the budget and how these costs might fit in with the budget. So what we did is we've given just a summary of the current budget, the fiscal year 05-06 budget, just to show you what, I think most of you are familiar with it, but this just puts into perspective what the total commission budget is, what the operations budget is, what the Metro Cable budget is, the channel licensee base, one-time expenditures that were approved this year, and then the parental revenue distributions. And so we don't have any exact recommendation of where this would be funded, but there aren't that many places and everything. So obviously when we come to your commission in June for the budget presentations in the budget meeting, that will be worked out. And we do actually plan to send out some information earlier before the meeting in this regard. And with that, unless there's any questions, I'll turn it over to Harriet.
Okay. Any questions of Bob? Yep. If not, then Harriet.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Since your last meeting, we have been working diligently on trying to get a final agreement done, and unfortunately, we're not quite there yet. Primarily, the issues that we're working out have to do with are really coordination issues. They're how we deal with making sure that all the different budgets line up and the time frames line up, and that the school districts know when they're going to need to have money and how that money is going to come forward and how the estimates and the final costing is going to occur. And so we're hopeful that that is the major issue, and it's really sort of making sure that we're all on the same page and we don't end up with hiccups after we start down this road. So we had so Liz Rhodes from Smctc and Sanford Inouye from Comcast and I met yesterday, and with the exception of finally figuring out among all the technical people and the budgeting people exactly how that is best coordinated, I think we have worked out almost all of sort of the implementation issues. The deal point issues have not changed. It's just getting, sort of digging down and getting into the details and making sure that everything is going to work the way we anticipate. So at this point, since your last meeting, I have met with Smctc and their board. We've met with school districts and school district representatives. Liz and Greg Linder from Elk Grove have done an amazing job of working with all the IT folks from all the different school districts to make sure that everybody's on the same page. All of the different districts have copies of the draft agreements. The districts also have copies of a letter of intent so that their districts can each go to their boards and say, do you want to participate, assuming everything stays the same money-wise, and tell us up front, yes, they do, or no, they don't, so we can finish the final costing. So what you have in your packet is the current working draft of the agreement. There will be changes to it, but we wanted to bring it to you so you could take a look at it, because the more eyes, the better. And if you have any questions about it, I'll be happy to try to answer them, or at least take them back and see if I can work them out. And we anticipate bringing a final agreement to you in June as part of your budget discussions.
Okay. All right. You've heard Harriet's report. Any questions of Ms. Steiner?
Just
Yes.
clarification. On the timeline in Exhibit D, are we talking January to start the build of 2008?
2007.
7, okay. I wasn't sure of the dates.
Right, those are the kinds of issues that we're still working out. If the agreement becomes effective, for example, this July, then how quickly can everybody can the school districts have the money and have Comcast done the final engineering so that we could start as soon as possible?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. There's nothing else, then we did have two people who wish to speak on this, and we call Greg Lindner and Liz Rhodes, in whatever order they prefer to come forward.
Maybe together.
And it looks like they're coming together.
We're a tag team.
There you go. Good afternoon, Liz. Good afternoon, Greg.
So I'm Liz Rhodes, Executive Director of the Sacramento Educational Cable Consortium.
And I'm Greg Lindner. I'm chairperson of the Sacramento Educational Cable Consortium.
Basically, we just wanted to say, first of all, thank you all very much for all your time and your patience and your effort on this. We're extremely excited, and the superintendents are excited about this, and everyone's just ready to move forward. So, your support means everything, and the actions that you took at your last meeting in terms of the cost share have been monumental in terms of moving this forward. So, first and foremost, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been a long time in coming, and we feel like we're very, very close. The other thing, we want to express our appreciation to Harriet Steiner, who has really taken this on and moved things through at the district level in a manner that we didn't think was possible. And then Bob Davison and Diane have been great in trying to work these details through. It's becoming more complicated rather than easier, but we think we're well on our way. And Comcast, too, has been really putting forth an effort to move this through. So we're real pleased with the direction that it's going. We've got just a couple more details. The big one I wanted to add that is not on that list, because we don't want to go through the whole report because it's there for you to read, is that Folsom Cordova is also, the Unified School District is also on board, and they were not in that list because they had not signed their letter of intent, but we got that this morning. So they're on board. They want to spread their schools out over a 3-year period, and they're working through the details contingent upon some of the numbers that still need to come back from Comcast. But with that, everybody else is listed within there as to who's on board for next year, and it looks like we've got pretty solid commitments from all the participating districts for this 3 years, and we're convinced, and Sanford is working with us, that this is only going to be a 3-year build. We're not going to put it out there that it may go past 3 years, because we think if we just say it's going to be 3, it will be 3.
Yeah. We're just very appreciative. It's been a long time in coming, and we're really excited about getting ready to move this forward. We think it's going to have a very significant impact on schools and school districts and the students in the area. So thank you for all your efforts.
Okay. Well, thank you, Greg and Liz. Any questions of these two folks? Andy?
I suppose since you're up there, related to the 3-year time frame plan and the $3.9 million, if this did get dragged out a little bit and timelines weren't met, is that roughly $4 million? Is that pretty fixed? We'd just be spreading that out a little more and not seeing escalation, or am I characterizing that right?
Yes, I believe that is the agreement, and we even talked about not to exceed.
That is the agreement. I don't think this would prevent future such requests in the future, obviously, if the whole thing was not funded, for example. But based on the agreement, there's no more obligation at this point.
Thanks.
Okay, one other thing. You said that the Folsom Cordova Unified School District is on board as of today.
Right.
So I guess that they're going to be involved in all of it rather than missing part because the draft hasn't been finished yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And the only reason I did not put them in that report, I didn't put anybody in that report who had not signed on the dotted line and said, yes, we have put money in our budget for that dollar-for-dollar match. And they just hadn't reached that point until the beginning of this week, which was after the draft came out, and I did get the final okay this morning. So I just wanted to make sure that, that you knew that they were on board.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the only other thing, if I might add,
Sure, go ahead, Liz.
just to save me time from coming up again later and bothering you, in front of you, you have an invitation to our annual award night. And if you want to get a kind of a preview of what the students have been doing, go online to bestnetsacramento.org, and you will find a tremendous amount of the student work, already on BestNet. That's one of the BestNet projects. So we hope that if you're available, you'll come and join us for our own version of the Oscars celebrating student videos. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Greg. Thank you for the invitation to the awards presentation. We'll just say I want to thank our staff, certainly Liz and Greg and all the various school district personnel that have and agency personnel worked on this, certainly Comcast for the work here, and it sounds like it's going to culminate in something that's going to be very beneficial to the students in the educational community here in our broader county area. So, okay. So you'll be back to us
In June.
in June with this. All right. Any other questions? If not, there's no action to be taken at this point in time then, correct?
There's no required action today.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you all for your good work, and we'll look forward to seeing this back then in June. All right, with that, if there's no other comments, we'll move to item number 2. And if you want to call that, Diane, please.
Yes, we have legislative update cap-to-cap trip.
Okay, I'll be providing your legislative update today, and if you've been watching newspapers and listening to the radio, watching TV, there's a lot of action here, so I'll try to do my best to summarize where we're at and see what kind of questions your commission has. First, let me just summarize actually what's in your package today. There's a staff report from me. There's an attachment that was prepared by Rich Esposito, previous executive director, and given the contract authority that was delegated to me at the last commission meeting, one of the things that we did is we went out and retained Rich to be a consultant to provide some legislative help to the commission. And it certainly has been a big help to me, and I'll be talking a little bit about that. Also, since the last meeting, when we were at the last meeting, I think the only thing that was really actively out there was what Harriet discussed with these proposed FCC rules. And after the meeting, shortly thereafter, I know that Harriet drafted some comments to those rules for the commission, and those were certainly sent out. Like I said, we retained Rich to provide legislative support. I had a couple meetings where Rich briefed me on the legislative environment and what was happening. And also, based on the direction from the last meeting, Rich, Harriet, Diane, and I met with Leslie McFadden, the county's legislative coordinator, and we talked about the pending federal and state bills and basically whether there's some synergy between the county's interests and the commission's interests, obviously, in regard to looking at these things that are coming up. Also, in relation to some of this federal legislation that I'm going to talk about in a minute, the Barton bill that maybe you've heard about already, I did draft a letter to Congressman Matsui regarding this, and this letter went out before this legislation came out, but just expressing the Commission's concerns and also discussing the Sacramento model for franchising. And also, just yesterday, I met with Paul Hahn and others with the county, and actually there's going to be a face-to-face meeting with Congresswoman, I might have said Congressman, but obviously I meant Congresswoman Matsui on April 21st. And actually at this meeting, the county, the purpose of the meeting is for the county to discuss certain federal issues with a Congresswoman, and I will actually be on the agenda, and I will prepare a briefing package in regards to the county's and the commission's issues in regards to some of the pending federal legislation. And I understand that it's probably a 2-hour meeting, but I will probably have about 5 minutes to make the pitch on the cable issues. And Leslie McFadden actually is, I think, helping to chair that meeting with Terry Shutton, and I think she might be saying some things as well. So that's a brief summary of all the activity that's happened, and there's still more. I did say attached is a report that was prepared by Rich Esposito. His report mainly, and I'm not going to read it verbatim or anything, but I'll just try to give you the highlights of the report, and certainly we can try and answer questions. In this environment we're in, where there seems to be a lot of things happening on all levels, federal, state, local, in regards to cable television and such other legislation, Rich tried to write a report that just basically explains who the main players are, how their positions relate to the current Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission policies and practices. He's very dramatic, but he does discuss this as a clash of corporate titans. I thought that was particularly interesting, given that in today's B there was an article on some of the pending state legislation, and actually I think some of the terms used in this article also discussed a clash of certain larger interests. So I thought that this report that was prepared is certainly very timely. And then finally he concludes how the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission model could be a compromise that could end some of these discussions if there's a stalemate in regards to which direction that some of this proposed legislation will go in. And a little bit more, he does describe the cable companies. He says mainly, and of course we have some cable companies, at least Comcast in the audience today, that they may provide some of their perspective on this, but Rich says that they're okay with the status quo. They don't mind things the way things are. However, if other companies get entry into the market and are able to provide video services, and they get a better deal in regards to franchise fees and other requirements, requirements, then they would likely want the same deal. They wouldn't want more harsh rules than other people that are entering to compete with them in the market. He describes the telecom companies who seem to be behind a lot of this proposed legislation as being very motivated to get into the business, and that they're throwing their immense political weight behind several efforts, federal, state, and local, which we mentioned, and all which could possibly hurt or undo local franchising. He says that the clash of these corporate titans that he calls telcos and the cable companies is about which mega corporation is going to get what percentage of the $220 in household monthly spending that happens on telecom services, basically internet, phone, cable, other related services that most households will spend about $220 a month. In this case, it's several large companies, and maybe some smaller companies trying to get some of that dollars going their way. And then his report finally concludes that the Sacramento model of cable franchising could be a compromise approach to this reform. And he goes on to give some talking points, and these are some points that could be brought up at Cap to Cap or at other meetings with the state and federal legislators. But basically, the Sacramento model provides customer service. It does provide for non-discriminatory build-out in increments, which I think is key, because that's one of the things that's talked about a lot in both this federal and state bill, is whether it allows for companies to compete but discriminate in how they provide services. Well, Sacramento has a model that allows people to enter into the market. It allows for an incremental build-out, which does prevent some discrimination. So certainly, Sacramento has a model that seems to be working already, that maybe this, at least in Sacramento's case, this legislation is not necessary. Then also the issue of the local control of the public rights of way, and whether that this should be federally controlled or controlled by the state, or stay in the hands of the local agencies, when these rights of ways are being utilized for providing things like video service. So I would recommend that the Commission should be very, very concerned about any proposed national or statewide franchising, and just point out again that Sacramento has a model that works fine, and maybe that's a story that can be told to others. The legislation that's seems to be pushed by the telecommunication companies could lead to no local control of the rights of way, less competition, less customer service, discrimination in providing the services, and higher cost for consumers. That basically is a summary of Rich's report, and with a little bit extra from me. And then in that regard, I don't know how much you would like to go into the different bills, but I'll just kind of quickly say what's out there. We talked about the FCC and the rules, and the main point about those is that some don't believe that the FCC even has jurisdiction here. And the other point is about the FCC rules, that there's no evidence that local franchises actually have been barriers to entry to others for competition. The federal bill, Rich Esposito has taken a look at that, and on the face of it, and even in the staff report, we talked about that it seems to have some words that say that the franchise fees will not be taken away, and that there's money for PEG. But he says in the final analysis, it looks like the way the revenues are discussed, that it could lead to less revenues for the local entities and for some of the PEG projects. He also says that there's technical failures in that bill. It does allow for redlining, in other words, discrimination in how service is provided, that possibly it will allow that the services be provided only to high-end customers, and that certain areas could be ignored, and that there's lots of ambiguity in the bill. Where this is right now, it was being heard by a subcommittee this week, and it just got passed through that subcommittee. It's likely that there will be many amendments to that federal bill, so who knows what the final bill is going to look like when it ultimately goes up for adoption or not. And he said that he expects that there will be a floor vote possibly in May. We talked about the FCC and the federal bill, and today actually at 10:30 there was a press conference by Assemblymen Nunes and Levine in regards to a statewide franchising bill, if you will. I actually watched the press conference. I'm not sure I can give you an expert opinion, but I have even shared an email with Rich since that press conference, and I think that the concerns about the federal bill are the same concerns seem to apply to the state bill as well. Without going into too much detail, I think what I talked about whether it will allow for, really will mean customer service, really mean lower prices, really mean that there's no discrimination in providing services. It seems that that bill may not be the best in that regard anyway. And again, just to bring this all back to what's happening in Sacramento is all the things that are being talked about, discrimination, providing customer service, competition, those are all things that are happening in a system that works in Sacramento. So we're hoping that maybe the final solution here won't be what's being proposed either on the federal level or the state level, and that maybe even some of what we do here could ultimately be part of that final decision. And with that, that's pretty much the end of my legislative report. I could talk a little bit about cap to cap, but I think I'll wait till see if there's any questions and any other comments.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll wait on a cap to cap part of it. Again, see if there's any questions. I know we have some folks here on the next item too, and I want to make sure we have ample time to get to that. So let me ask anyone here. Yes, Mr. McGarvey.
The FCC, if the people in D.C. decide to do something, that'll trump anything we do in the state, correct?
It depends on exactly what they do. In the past, the current telecommunications bill provides for the overall regulation, and within that, the states regulate. So some areas have been preempted, like the amount of franchise fees, for example, right now, the maximum, but not all areas. So we really have to wait and see what the legislation is, but I think the current bills would tend towards trying to preempt all of the states. But we don't really know how it's going to end up at this point.
If they do that, how much would the cities and the counties lose as far as actual business control that they have now? I mean, you have to have a franchise, you have to pay a business license, you have to, if that would go out the window, it looks like it would, from what I've seen on most of the legislation in D.C., and I'm not sure about the state.
Well, it's hard to answer that question because there's some language that says some of it's protected. But I've seen some comments going back and forth that says that that is at risk, whether it's completely at risk, or I've seen other estimates that say, well, maybe they would current revenues could be reduced by 20% or more. I don't think there's a clear answer to that. I've seen discussion that says that there is some risk there, but as far as coming up with a number and saying this is going to be the effect, I think it's too early to tell. And certainly the language can change between now and when it's finally, when and if it's finally adopted.
And one other question, was the redlining you were talking about just for the state, or was that federal also?
I believe it's for both.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Anybody else on this side wish to? Okay, anybody here? All right, well, thanks,
Okay,
Bob.
I'll just try to keep the cap-to-cap comments quick, but obviously cap-to-cap is coming. Given this environment, it's probably a very timely trip, especially in regards to some of the federal items that are going on. Certainly, your board members are encouraged to press these issues, and particularly the Sacramento model. The staff report today, the Rich's report, I think could be helpful in that regard. By about April 24th, with Rich's help, we are going to prepare some talking points that members who are going to cap can bring with them that would hopefully help make the case for local cable franchising. Also, too, Rich has been working with NATOA, and he's actually trying to set up a couple of face-to-face meetings with senators and our staff. Those aren't set up yet. Part of the reason is because of the crazy environment that's happening right now, but he thinks that there's a good chance that those will be set up. If that happens, NATOA staffers have agreed to be escorts and help in that regard, and I will certainly forward anybody going to cap with the information once we have details on that. If those meetings fall through and they don't happen, in the minimum, by April 24th, we will send out some information to all commissioners, but the ones who are going to cap can take with them that will kind of summarize a lot of this information and some talking points, and certainly include any updates on the latest information. So we hope to have that by April 24th. And just to remind you, at the last meeting, your board approved up to $6,000 total, with up to $1,000 for each member as possible reimbursements for those going to cap. Do want to point out that the county travel policy now requires that a request for reimbursement to include a trip summary that talks about how the trip was related to commission issues. So I think, I'm not sure, county members should certainly be aware of that. I don't know the cities and others if everybody else is aware of that, so just want to make sure that was clear. And that's the end of this item, unless you have any more questions.
Okay. Now, if there's no other questions, we did have a couple of speakers on this item, so we'll take those comments and then come back to the commission for any final comments. Okay, I have Mark Burgat? Is it Bryant? Huh? Burgat, okay, and followed by Ron Cooper, or either order if there was any particular order. So.
I'll try not to repeat what Ron's going to say. My name is Mark Burgat. I'm the Director of Public Affairs for California Cable and Telecommunications Association. Some of you look very familiar to me from my years here in Sacramento. Some of you don't. But thank you very much for having me here. Mr. Chairman and members, I appreciate the opportunity to come before you. To build on what Mr. Davidson said, there was, in fact, a press conference this morning by Speaker Nunez and Assemblymember Levine. If you are interested, I do have copies of the language for the bill that they propose here, and I can make that available to you. We don't anticipate that bill being in print until Friday or Monday of this week. So this will give you a heads up on that. The bill, in fact, we don't believe does address redlining or build out or equal access effectively, and the League of California Cities as well as CSAC representatives were at the press conference to echo those exact sentiments. One of the big concerns, of course, is that they set up the Department of Corporations in California as the one to set up the franchise authority. Of course, the Department of Corporations has no experience with this. They have no budget for this, and until the press conference or until they get the language, are not even currently aware that they've been identified as the group to do this. Obviously, by moving the franchises from the local level to the state level, you do lose out on the ability to negotiate with the cable companies, to negotiate, to have CBOs negotiate, have different access points for your community negotiated with the cable company. Things like peg channels, franchise fees, those sorts of things will all be in a state modeled franchise. How that money comes back down to the locals has not been identified. I think the cable companies and the new companies that want to come into this business have agreed that they would pay a 5%, but nobody's been able to figure out how to get it down to you, the locals, with any sort of belief that it would come to you on a regular basis. I might add that I was the former chief representative for the city of Los Angeles, so I'm very familiar with how the city governments work, and we've all been through VLF before and how that worked out for us. So we see this as something very similar. I also brought along CCTA's statement on the bill today so that you can read that if you'd like to. Also mention, Mr. Espasto. We've worked with him as well as Leslie McFadden on these issues. We're working hand in hand with the League of Cities and CSAC, and on this particular issue, we are in complete agreement. I would also mention, too, on the federal bill that Mr. Davidson indicated very significant concerns about redlining and cream skimming there as well. The bill is anticipated that it will come up for a vote in the full committee and probably get out of the House side about 2 weeks after Easter. The real issue, though, there is what will happen in the Senate. And they believe that things will be much more difficult for it to get passed on the Senate. I would anticipate a less than 50-50 chance of something federally being passed this year. And again, with this bill, devil's in the details to see how far we get. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions of our speaker? If not, thanks for additional information. Appreciate it, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to information about the bill. Okay, thank you.
I'll have you pass that over.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, next, Ron Cooper. Ron?
Ron Cooper, Executive Director of Access Sacramento and also a board member of the Alliance for Community Media Western Region. And I was in attendance at the 10:30 press conference with Assembly Speaker Nunez and Assemblyman Levine's bill. This is a document that we distributed at the time, which is a coalition of various organizations, grassroots organizations interested in consumer affairs and communications media for the people. And we have identified 3 key issues that the various groups represented wanted to make sure that the Assemblyman and all others interested in this legislation on the state level, that they place as a high priority in these discussions. In looking at the talking points that were developed by Mr. Espasto, and for those of you who are attending Cap to Cap, I'm sure you've gone to Cap to Caps before where there were meaningful opportunities to have impact, but I can't imagine it's ever been as important as this key issue and this opportunity. And so just maybe to help kind of wade through some of the varying issues and what is and what isn't, the key point, I think, in Mr. Espasto's talking points that the Sacramento model really needs to be emphasized at the federal and state levels is the issue of Sacramento's policies provide for a balanced build-out in 1,000 home increments of high and low economic demographics. In the press conference today, Assemblyman Nunez started and stressed throughout the entire press conference that his bill was non-discriminatory. And if you just listened to his presentation, where does the word redlining ever come up? It doesn't. And if you and upon being questioned by the press in the room, where it comes up, and you have to be very skillful both at the state level and at the federal level to understand what's being proposed. And let me put it in my own words. When the phone company comes to town and says, we are going to build out a broadband pipe, and that pipe is non-discriminatory, that means everybody in that neighborhood, whether black, white, poor, or rich, gets an opportunity to spend $220 a month. If that pipe isn't in your neighborhood, somehow that's non-discriminatory. And when you stop and think about it, well, so if they don't serve that neighborhood or even that community, and those in rural communities, this is compounded 100-fold. Do you call that discrimination? Well, under the current terms of franchising, yes. If a company came and said, we're only going to pick the neighborhoods where there's the highest income and build out under your franchising authority, specific to that point of 1,000 increment, you would say you must adhere to those rules. So there is a balanced build out. And that seems to me the really sore point. There's a lot of money being thrown around. The CWA, the Communications Workers of America, were there saying this is a jobs bill. We think it's a great opportunity. I'm sure it will. Right now, currently, local government's kind of being bypassed in this whole process. But certainly at the state and federal levels, this is a challenge for elected officials to say, even though we can see a tremendous opportunity for broadband growth in our communities, the rules are the rules, and everybody should play fairly by those rules, and really stand strong on this issue of redlining, because that is the central core issue as elected officials that I think is going to be the hardest for you to protect, but I would submit perhaps the most important. Thank you.
Okay, Ron, I had
Thanks,
a
Ron.
question. I hope that's on. I can't even find my other glasses today, so.
You're enjoying the sunshine, obviously.
Well, the sunshine almost blinded me, and so I put these on, and now I can't find what I did with the other ones. That always happens. But I wanted to ask you, in terms of a lot of times legislators don't read the bills. They just think that that's what the bill is going to contain or not. So until a bill is really in print and you begin to really look and analyze it, I don't care what they say. If it's not really spelled out in the bill, and that becomes the important one. And obviously, in all my years, that redlining has been one of the key issues, because it is so easy to cherry pick, to go after just the areas where you get the most income. And when you're in a community where there is a tremendous amount of integration between how we usually classify people by race and ethnicity, that's a non-starter, in terms of, non-discriminatory, because housing is non-discriminatory, but you have to have the money to get into certain areas. They're looking to cherry pick the areas with disposable income. What I didn't understand from any of the news accounts is, in totally leaving local government out of the picture, both at the feds and at the state level, I was concerned about what they are doing about rights of entry into the streets, and how you can possibly get a handle on that. They also need, in some instances, depending on where they want to go on the property, we've run into the issue of needing to put things in county right-of-way, even in the right behind the sidewalk area, etc. And is the bill totally silent on that, or does it just say that local governments shall accommodate them wherever they want to go, and it doesn't matter what their build schedule is or anything else?
I think the previous speaker mentioned that the devil's in the details, and I think the more that you look at this, Isla, it's absolutely shocking in that it is being structured in the most broad terms that competition in the marketplace will lower rates, and pretty much everything else is not being considered. And the document, the Barton bill that's moving forward, is being amended to like a Christmas tree with ornaments. The Nunez bill, again, we won't see until, and it's kind of what I call a rolling target. But I want to phrase that as an opportunity. As confusing as it is to know what's being said and what's being provided, it also means, as on the cap-to-cap trip, but also just down the street here, there is an opportunity for your voices to make a big difference. And again, stressing the Sacramento model. And the one point that I would emphasize that I don't think Mr. Spasto emphasized, I think your individual voices and the fact that it's not just the Cable Commission but the constituencies of the incorporated cities, those have a significant difference in addition to the league and the counties and the rest. We have a model here that's successful. We have a model that would avoid redlining. That is not being spoken to and must be spoken to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree very much, and I think the important thing is you have members of the local Sacramento delegation at the local level, two of whom I think actually served on the Cable Commission, and Dave Cox in the Republican Party, and then Dave Jones in the Democratic Party. I can't remember whether Ortiz ever did or not. Deborah Ortiz, she served on the
No.
Pardon?
I don't believe Miss Ortiz.
No,
was
I
on the
don't think
commission
she
for any
ever.
other
I don't
time.
remember her
I
serving.
think she was an alternate at one point.
Yeah, okay, but they are familiar with this model. They also, and I assume everyone's contacting them because they're very familiar with the model that exists here, and I would hope that in their respective caucuses they start bringing up some of these issues, and I hope they remember their local government roots in terms of how this affects the neighborhoods, the streets, and everything when they actually go out to do construction and or hang wires. And if it's totally wireless system, that's one thing, but
It will be your problem whether they address it or not.
I
and
know,
that's
I
the
know.
shocking truth
So,
of it.
yeah.
Yes.
So, and I hope CSAC really has and League of Cities really has a lot of activity on this level, because a lot of these people did serve in local government at one time. They shouldn't ignore where they come from and the neighborhoods that helped elect them.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Collins. Mr. McCarty.
Thank you.
Was there anything,
Bob, I had Kevin first.
Okay, I'm sorry.
McCarty.
I'm sorry,
enough,
yeah.
Right?
You're the man.
In addition to what Ms. Collins was mentioning, one issue, of course, is the resources that we get from our local budgets. And my understanding is they pledge in some capacity they would make whole the local government, so that would have to be followed on. But that's really not my question. I'm not sure if it's for you, Ron, or Bob, or maybe Mark wants to comment on this. I read the article today, and I think I read an article last week in the Capital Weekly or Political Pulse, something about this. And they asked both Verizon and AT&T and the speaker about redlining, or we call it cream skimming. And I think we make a compelling argument because my brief experience here, we make sure West or anybody else, Comcast, Frontier, serve all our communities. And I know that you said the speaker's press conference, he said we're not doing that. In the article today, both AT&T and Verizon talk about their firm commitments to low-income communities. What, kind of on the flip side, maybe the devil's advocate, what are they claiming that they will do to make sure low-income communities will be taken care of? They're saying, don't worry, we have a system, but what? I don't know. I don't want you to say their argument, but maybe you can paraphrase it. Anybody can answer that question.
There was a key point, and again, this was the theme, I think, if there was a theme to the press conference, the theme was this is non-discriminatory. And the implied way that was going to be addressed is that, and this was Speaker Nunez's comments, and he turned to the NAACP representative when he said this. He said, blacks and Hispanics are noteworthy because their households purchase a lot of cable, and that they use cable as their primary form of entertainment and information. So one could therefore assume that any business model that would ignore blacks and Hispanics would just be crazy business, and therefore it's going to kind of take care of itself because minority families and households purchase a lot of cable. And that was it. And that's when you kind of peel that apart, that's what gets confusing, because if you don't have that pipe in your neighborhood, whether you're rich or poor or whether it's important or not, you have no choice.
Mark, did you want to respond?
Yeah, if I could comment on that as well. AT&T put out a statement to Wall Street November 22nd, 2005, that indicated to Wall Street that their plan was to develop or to deliver their light speed, their fiber optic cable service to 90% of the high value customers and 5% of their low value customers. High value and low value being identified by how much they spend on their telecommunications. Now, if you take the basic telecommunications, phone, television, and high-speed internet, if you take them at the basic level, you don't meet the high-value customer service. So what AT&T has done is they've developed what they call a second-tier program, which is called Home Zone, which is really a repackaging of their copper DSL line with their EchoStar satellite. So in their high-value customers, they would build out this light-speed fiber optic cable to what they consider to be low-value customers, which are anybody that spends under about $120 a month on their telecom. They would get this Home Zone, which of course, as you know, Home Zone is available today. It's called DSL and satellite. Home Zone is a new word for it. Obviously, with satellite, you don't get your franchise fees. You don't get PEG channels. Most of the emergency alert services messages are not delivered over your satellite system as well. So this is kind of the tack that they're taking. As they come in, they say, yes, we will serve the entire community. What we'll serve it with is the question. Will we serve it with our current technology or the latest technology? And I can let you know, Ms. Collin, that the League of Cities and CSAC is extremely active on this issue, and in some instances pulling us along with them. So.
Oh, good. We're glad to see you there.
I can speak very highly. Anthony Thomas with the League of Cities, Gene Hurst with CSAC, and then Leslie McFadden, your own lobbyist as well.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Great. Thank you.
Kevin, anything else? Okay, Mr. Barber.
My question was answered.
Okay, good. All right, any other commissioners wish to ask any questions? If not, I want to thank Mark and Ron for their comments. Thank you, Bob and Harriet, and to Rich for his analysis of this. And sounds like for those that are going to CAP, you will have some speaking points readily available. And I don't know if there'll be any help by commission to coordinate any meetings while folks are back there, but if that's the case, you'll keep people posted on.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted. I think the last I heard from Rich is that it's likely to happen. Said there will be likely to be some meetings coordinated.
And people need to work with folks up here because they get on different teams.
I understand.
And so if there's going to be, it's likely to happen, doesn't mean getting back to D.C. on Sunday and then telling everybody there's a meeting Monday morning. So somebody will have to do some coordination. And obviously, for those that are going back there, they're tuned in this. Yeah, Robbie, you got
Bob, when will we know how many commissioners have applied for the financial aid?
I believe we have 7 that their offices have said that they're going.
Okay.
So that.
Because we're trying to budget on one side with what we have to pay after the cable picks up ours. So.
Got it. So take
You'll
7.
let us know then.
Take 7. Yeah, I was going to do a memo to
An
your
update.
secretaries.
Okay, thank you.
Basically.
And I asked about the yesterday update on the meetings and such. So I'm actually trying to make sure that they get, because I know that I'd hate to just schedule something, have it happen, and then nobody can show up. So I will let you know as soon as I know.
Thanks, Bob. That's part of that part-time assignment you have, right?
Right.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions? If not, then we'll move on down to the next item on the agenda. And thank you, everyone, for your input on that. So next item, Diane.
Yes, we have item 3, closed captioning request update.
Okay, and I want to note that we do have 8 speakers signed up for this item, and we'll take a staff report, and then any questions for commissioner or directors, and then we'll go to the audience for comments.
Okay. I'll just give a brief staff report, and then certainly we'll open it up to comments and any questions that you may have. With the request from the County Disability Advisory Committee last November, we received a request to caption Board of Supervisor meetings. Staff was approached with this, but actually at that time, and I believe Rich Esposito in an email clarified what we might look at, said that maybe a good idea to look at more than just captioning Board of Supervisors meetings, that it may make sense to look at all the different meetings that are broadcast by Metro Cable and the different venues and come up with the various options. And I think at that time, Rich said that we would try to come back with options and costs and such in June. And honestly, we're still trying to meet that requirement. And certainly, just looking at Board of Supervisors meetings might be a little bit easier, but given the effort that is taken, I think it does make sense to look at these options. Just to give you an idea of some of the differences, there's 12 venues, and there's various equipment that's required at each of these venues, and whether they're live or taped, there are complications that could arrive from looking at meetings here versus at the city versus at the other cities. So that all has to be taken into account in regards to coming up with the different options and coming up with the costs in regards to what options and what costs there are available. Other things as well, real-time captioning versus which uses either court reporters or some sort of audio feed that goes to even other states, such as Denver, where somebody transcribes the captioning and sends it back and it comes over the screen, or offline captioning of just tape copies is another option, or possibly maybe the original broadcast not being captioned but the repeat broadcast being captioned. I'm not saying that there's one option that I'm proposing here now. I'm just saying that there are various different options, and those are just some of them. There's also different quality levels of captioning. Staff has been actually I think Diane and her staff, they sent out, they've tried talking to more than 60 jurisdictions to see who does captioning, and actually not a lot of them do, though some of them do. And I think she's been able to get some information from some of the jurisdictions that do provide captioning. And if you're looking at a per hour cost, those costs can range. We heard the number that I've seen before, and Rich had talked about before, was $125 an hour. to broadcast. Now we're thinking it's more of a range of about $95 to $225 an hour. In fact, Diane talked to some jurisdictions yesterday that they have a pretty high-end, I think, captioning services, but the cost they quoted us was $175 an hour. So there's certainly a range of costs out there, and of course, as part of this cost is, but what are they actually doing? Are they live captioning? Are they doing something else? And I believe that those quotes are related to captioning of the live broadcast, if I'm not mistaken. The other thing, too, is that this cost may not just apply to the meeting hour. In other words, if you have a 2-hour meeting, doesn't necessarily mean that you're paying $175 if that's the number for 2 hours. It's the 2 hours of the meeting, but it's also the setup time and takedown time. There's other costs there. So maybe, I don't know what the number is, but you may be paying for 3 hours for a 2-hour meeting. And also, if you convene a meeting that lasts 20 minutes, you're still probably paying for 2 or 3 hours. Those types of things need to be factored into the total cost. So with that, staff has spent a lot of time doing internet research, talking to other jurisdictions, trying to wrap our arms around this. And I want to remind you that we have pretty good video experts on Metro Cable staff and other staff as well that do a pretty good job, but I don't think we have any closed caption experts on staff. So we really do need outside help. The original idea was to find that magic consultant that was out there that would basically be able to come in and tell us exactly what we need to do. And I know Diane and her staff have done some research on that and really haven't found a good fit. And that's why, and this was reported at our February 2nd meeting, we changed directions. We decided, rather than looking for one consultant, I think the idea is to go out with an RFP. There's many companies that provide closed captioning service. There's large companies, there's small companies. There's different ways of doing it. There's some court reporters in very small companies that can provide this service. So I think we've identified several companies that can provide this type of service. So the idea is to do a request for a proposal to, in that request, identify the current setup, the current different venues, and describing that we're maybe asking for different options and what the cost would be for doing different levels of meetings, and also the complications in regards to the one venue versus the other. What we'd like to do is do this RFP and bring back, hopefully in the June meeting, a range of options and costs, and hopefully at that time we'll be able to identify what those costs may be and actually get some decisions from your commission. And of course, on top of figuring out, wrapping our arms around this, figuring out what to provide in the costs, also is then how to fund it. And certainly, part of the budget meeting next time, this along with BestNet and other things are, the question is where all this will fit in the budget, and if it can fit in the budget, and what types of decision your commission would like to make. Okay. So with that, that's pretty much where we're at right now. We're hoping that we can get a request for proposal out by the end of April. We're going to really try for that so that we would be able to report back, have a response before the June meeting. That's the goal.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. May I ask questions, Ms. Collin?
Yeah. My question would just be how you possibly are going to put the RFP together in terms of what are you specifically going to be asking for? I have seen closed captioning, and I've seen it mainly on movies that they show. So they've had time to, make sure all the closed captioning is underneath. It comes across in a written form. It seems to me that ideally what I would assume the people are looking for that want closed captioning is to capture the live meeting. And that requires a whole different type skill and a whole different type of equipment to get yourself in a position where you could do that at live meetings. Are all the jurisdictions now under live meetings, or are we still taping?
Well, I believe there's some that are taped.
Yeah, we have both, and that's what makes analysis a little challenging. Is
Pardon?
because that we have both. That's what's making analysis a little challenging.
We had both. There are some meetings that just there's no time on one channel to do everybody's meetings.
In fact, the city council itself is their afternoons are taped in our view and live in the evening after the Board of Supervisor has adjourned
for the day.
So, and then all the little cities, all of them are taped. There are some that are going out web streaming now. And I think Citrus has gone live recently with a unique hookup straight to Comcast rather than circling back downtown with the connection.
Yeah, that is the other variable. Our meetings are web streamed to the County Board of Supervisors. And so if people have access to internet, there's sound on the web streaming. So part of it, it's going to be a very challenging RFP to put forward. And then the next challenge becomes how much of the very small amount that we get in franchise fees, from my perspective, that now goes out to people whose responsibility is to program and operate those channels that are on the 7 PEG channels. How are they going to be affected by any decision in terms of going out with this? And so I don't really and truly know whether one of the options is more and more web streaming. For many people that might have a cable system that can hook into that. I don't know whether you need first to bring some of those policy thresholds to this total group before you decide to even go out with an RFP, because you're going to struggle with putting it together, that's for sure.
Well, maybe what we got to do is, and I think Ms. Collins raises some good points. We got to hear from folks, get some sense of what it is that is the concern. There's been some discussion with some of the advisory committees in the community and so forth, and other groups who advocate on behalf of folks. And so maybe we got to hear from them, and then we'll circle back around to talk with Bob and commission members here. So unless there's any other questions people had of Bob at this point, let's hold responses to Ms. Collin and then let's hear from folks and then come back. Okay. With that, let me call the first 3 speakers. We have Warren Cushman, followed by Sherry Farina. I haven't got the last name correctly. And she can.
Bob, want to help Warren?
Some help?
And then Timothy Hickerson will be the third speaker.
Okay, Warren, yeah. He's very familiar with the podium. You just...
Where is the mic? Okay.
You're in between both.
There you go, Warren.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, members of the commission.
Good afternoon, Warren.
My name is Warren Cushman, for the record. I want to speak to the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors for just a moment. I'd say a month ago, I would be willing to bet that some of you remember me sitting in the audience until 7:30 at night, waiting for an item to come up. Reason I had to do that
was that a 2 o'clock item, Warren?
I'm sitting in the audience waiting, and actually I didn't even get to speak. But the reason I had to do that was because I cannot access the web broadcast from my home.
Oh.
My wife is, Sheila, is an access technology specialist for the blind. She spent 2 hours on our computer trying to bring down the web access to get through the computer so that I could hear a meeting of the County Board of Supervisors. And she is a whiz, and she couldn't do it. She called Donna. She called the Metro Cable folks. She even talked to the consultant, the web consultant, and it couldn't get done. It was impossible. So my recommendation is, as part of the RFP, that you not only look at the concerns of the deaf, but you also look at access technology for the blind. My wife would be glad to interact in that capacity. She is an access technology specialist. The second thing I'd like to say is just a reminder that this whole issue of access to information is necessary and vital to the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is exactly what the ADA was all about when it was passed in 1990. This is exactly what people with disabilities advocate for every day as we struggle for our civil rights. This issue that we are speaking of is a cornerstone from our perspective of the civil rights movement. So I think it's important to put this in perspective. We hear a lot about cost, and I can certainly respect that. But there's also an equally important value of access to information and civil rights, which we have to balance. The other thing I think that's important is that the Disability Advisory Council of the County of Sacramento has been deliberating about this for almost a year. And so there are organizations and advocates who have been anxiously waiting to see this develop. I think that it makes sense to start somewhere, and I'm certainly not going to demand something out of reach. But I do want to step forward to say that there are a lot of values to consider, that we do need to proceed in an intelligent way, but that from the disability community, we see this as a civil rights issue, as an access issue, and something that is vital to communication and to participating in society. Thank you.
Thanks, Warren.
Thanks, Warren.
Okay, next is then Sherry Farina, and I didn't get the last name. So I'll let you pronounce your name, Sherry.
Hello.
Hi, Sherry.
My name is Sherry Farina Muti.
Hi, Muti.
I'm the CEO of NorCal Center on Deafness. We provide social services to deaf and hard of hearing individuals throughout 24 northeastern counties, including Sacramento, where our headquarters is located. I'm involved with deaf consumers and advocates on a national level. When you talk about issues related to FCC, I'm really familiar with some of the issues, especially with regard to broadband access. It's really important to us also. We submitted an amendment through Congressman Ainsley related to Section 255 of the ADA, to make sure that our rights are protected there also. So we're part of that Christmas tree somebody mentioned earlier. We're here today to request your support to require that all of the televised proceedings of the county meetings that are conducted be closed captioned, to allow for the population with a hearing loss to have equal access. We estimate approximately 10% of the total population has a hearing loss, which means about 30 million Americans, approximately 3.8 million deaf and hard of hearing residents in California, and comes down to Sacramento County, between 150 to 250,000 residents. As you already know, related to the federal legislation enacted in 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act, passed by Congress, was done so to prohibit discrimination against people with disabilities. This act gives all Americans with disabilities, including deaf and hard of hearing individuals, a new venue for expressing their rights as individuals to have equal access to public information and services. Title II of the ADA, related to state and local governments, specifically talks to closed captioning, which states a public entity must ensure that its communications with individuals with disabilities are as effective as communications with others. When the FCC regulation Part 79 was established related to closed captioning of video programming, the legislative intent by Congress of the United States was for the goal to be to ensure that all Americans ultimately have access to video services and programs, particularly as video programming becomes an increasingly important part of the home, school, and the workplace. Thus, the county's obligation, according to the law, to avoid the appearance of being discriminatory, such as like the city of Tucson in Arizona is doing by providing closed captioning to their city council public meetings, would be to do likewise the same. If a consumer who is deaf wishes to attend a meeting as we are here today, access is available to us by those of us who requested access via a sign language interpreter. However, we don't have that access when you turn on the TV to watch and view as hearing residents in Sacramento County can. In fact, there are many issues that you do discuss that deaf and hard of hearing consumers are not aware of. Quite frankly, when we had our open house 2 years ago, Board of Supervisors Roger Dickinson came and he talked about many, many important issues, and we had 1,500 people there. And many of them were really shocked to know some of the issues that you have been working really hard on, and really he got a standing ovation when he left. So it's really important that productive tax-paying citizens, members of Sacramento residents, that they feel that they have access to be able to view your proceedings and be able to participate and help as well.
Sherry? Sherry?
One of the things that I wanted to be sure to mention when you talked about the caption issue, there are other areas.
Sherry? I need to ask you, we have typically a time frame of about 3 minutes per speaker. I just want to know how long you felt you were going to continue. I don't want to cut you short because it's very important what you're saying, but I needed to know about
I want to just wrap up with touch up on a couple
That's fine.
things.
Yeah, a couple more minutes.
Talk. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, good.
You mentioned webcast. To be able to view on webcast, because broadband isn't really available in the rural areas as well as all of Sacramento, and not everybody can afford it yet, that's not an ideal solution for deaf and hard of hearing consumers. More people can access the proceedings by cable TV. So I hope that that's what you're going to be looking at. I would encourage you to look at the expertise already available by your local TV station, Channel 3, 10, and 13, who we've asked to provide live captioning, especially during times of national disaster and crises, especially since we've been having warnings with floods and levees breaking. It's a real concern for us, and all of the citizens have been watching, and myself on 24/7 alert, to be able to make sure that deaf and hard of hearing people have a way to know that there's an evacuation to be able to leave the area. So that's why captioning is really, really important. And as much as knowing what you're doing as our elected officials to be able to pursue issues that are of importance for us. So I hope today that you support in policy the need for this to happen, and with the understanding that if there's a will, there's a way. You will find the money. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, next speaker is Timothy Hickerson, followed by Linda Cook.
Okay, I came here to give my support to have the cable to provide closed caption. I think it's very important for myself and for other people like me. I am hard of hearing. My parents are deaf, and I graduated from a deaf school. And I think it is very important that you hear from a person who's from the community as people themselves. I feel that it is necessary for us to have closed caption during live television news. It is not fair to us to not know until later. I feel that it's fair for us to know exactly the same time that other people who can't hear know at the same time. Even if there is at least an emergency situation or a havoc emergency situation. Like maybe there will be a war going on. We want to know our safety as well as other people know their safety when they listen to the news and be prepared. We do not want to be unprepared by not getting the news, the words that we need. We feel, in a word, discriminated against our right to know as equally as other people. I feel that we need to work together to make our disability equally the same. If we can work together, I'm sure there is always a way that we can make things work. I don't think we should take for granted that you will do the captioning. We want to make sure that we get the same things like you do get. We want to be in the equal level and work together as a team. I'm only speaking on behalf of the community, how we feel we want to be equal. We want to be feel more important in the community as we watch TV and get the same information and communication access. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. Okay, next is Linda Cook, and Linda will be followed by Juanita Raup.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sacramento County Board of Supervisors and Metro Cable Commissioner. First, I'd like to apologize for my voice. I've been sick with sinus infection for 2 weeks. I don't recommend that for anybody. My name is Linda Cook. I am deaf and a member of the deaf community and a strong and active advocate for deaf rights. I am asking Metro Cable to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, and Federal Communications Commission, FCC, rules and regulations by providing closed caption for their Channel 14 government programming. At this time, caption is non-existent. The ADA is a congressional act. It is a comprehensive civil rights law for people with disabilities. The ADA ensures equal access for persons with disabilities. Equal access for the deaf population is providing closed caption for TV and cable program broadcasting. ADA requires equally effective communication for individuals with hearing impairment. Closed captioning meets this requirement. In 1996, Congress required video program distributors, cable operators, broadcasters, satellite distributors, and other multi-channel video programming distributors to close caption their television programs. Pursuant to this requirement, the FCC in 1997 set a transition schedule requiring distributors to provide an increasing amount of caption programming. This is a direct quote from the FCC Consumer Fact Sheet regarding closed captioning. I have provided copies for you. The above mentioned transition schedule is also included. Captioning is an auxiliary aid. Not providing this aid is establishing a barrier. The ADA and FCC provide rules and regulations, guidelines and deadlines, and have been enacted to remove all barriers for the handicapped. I am asking for my freedom of choice. I have the same right to this freedom a hearing person has. A hearing person can choose what programs they wish to watch on television and cable. I can only watch programs that have closed captioning. I want my freedom of choice. It is my right. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Okay, next, Juanita Raup, and Juanita will be followed by Lois Diamond.
Okay, my name is Juanita. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to show you a few things, and just for you to keep these things in mind. Can you hear that? Could you hear that? Well, deaf people, we can't, not all deaf people can read closed captioning either. But we've had no captioning about floods or hurricanes. We hear nothing about any of that. A long time ago, I lived with a roommate who was hearing. I am deaf, and my hearing roommate was watching television. She was glued to the TV screen. She was watching it, and what was on? I looked, and it was something about a flood, and I'm saying, what are they saying? What are they saying? She says, leave me alone, leave me alone. I'm trying to pay attention to this, and I got very upset. I went into my kitchen, and you know what I saw? My kitchen floor was flooded, and I went to her to try to tell her, and she says, no, no, no. And she wouldn't pay attention to me. So finally, I physically had to grab her, make her get up, and come in to see that our house was getting flooded. Here she ignored me because I was deaf. I felt she ignored me because I was deaf. And so, closed captioning, needs to be inserted on bulletins when they have those sorts of things, those warnings. We need to have those closed caption bulletins or captioning on those, because there has been none in some of these familiar disasters that we've experienced. Like, my gosh, I could lose the roof of my house and not even know it's coming. So I want to know where the captioning is. Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita. Thank you, Juanita. Okay.
You're welcome.
Next is Lois Diamond, and Lois is followed by Leslie Burchell. Good afternoon.
Hi. My name is Lois Diamond. I am also an active member of the deaf community and of the Sacramento community. And you've already heard the things over and over again about the law, so I'm going to eliminate that part I was going to speak on. I want to let you know that we have roughly about 130,000 deaf people in Sacramento alone. You never see them because we have no visible identity. There are those among us that can be walking around in town. We're the ones who vote. We do watch TV. We can be at home with our families. We work, but you don't see us. The average deaf person pays $52 a month. That's the average for basic cable. But we don't have that same access that the hearing people who pay that same thing do. Channels 14, 15, 17, 18, 22, 27, 32, 37, 36. All of these other programs or channels are not captioned, but I pay for those channels just like everybody else. Except for the Spanish-speaking and Asian language channels. I'm not going to count that. Now, deaf people, for many years, have been very isolated. We've been isolated from the world because of communication. It has only been within the past 15 years that we've been able to mainstream ourselves, mainly because of interpreters like these two here. Thank you very much. And relay services now. And then captioning came on the scene bit by bit. Very, very exciting for us. We could finally watch TV. We could see it any time of the day or night. We could see how other people communicate, how they talk to each other. For this past 20 years, we've been coming out of our darkness. Deafness itself is not a disability. I think it's a communication barrier. With professionally trained interpreters, with the relay service, and with captioning on all television, we will feel no isolation any longer. It's just a small thing that we are asking. I urge you all to please allow us to have access to all of the community cable televised programming. Let us become independent constituents. We vote just like other people. We hear the news. We want to hear the news just like other people. Let us become productive and independent citizens. who live good, independent lives. Tonight, when you go home, I'm going to ask a favor of all of you. Could you please turn on the TV for just 5 minutes? 5 minutes. Sit down. Play with your remote there and adjust it. I want you to make an adjustment. I'd like you to watch it without the sound and see if you can figure out what they say. You'll see what we feel like. Now, the good news is this. You only have to go through that for 5 minutes. But that's something that we go through 24 hours a day for the rest of our lives. You have the power and the authority to make those changes. Let us have these changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. Okay, next, Leslie Burchell, and followed by the last speaker signed up, which is David Benai. If there's anyone else who wishes to address the commission, please get a form, and otherwise David will be the last speaker following Leslie.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
My name is Leslie Burchell. I am from Elk Grove. I know Mike, he's my representative over there from my area. And I'm here to encourage all of you to put captioning on because we'd like to know what's going on within the city's meetings. We'd like to participate and knowing what's going on, but we can't. We can't get involved in things. Oftentimes I don't go to some things because the schedule doesn't meet my needs. I have to try and find an interpreter for a meeting. I can't do that. But, so instead I'd like to be able to watch it from home and know what's going on in the community. I want to know what's going on in Elk Grove. Elk Grove is going through so many changes, rapid changes. We have new technology, new organizations cropping up, all sorts of things happening there in my area. And I feel like I'm behind. I'm in the dark because I'll try and scan the newspaper and look for information on what's happening in my community, but I want to get more information than what's printed out there. I want to know what's going on in the meetings, just like other people in my area are able to do. They can watch those meetings and know what's happening. I feel that if this were to happen, you would get more deaf and hard of hearing people. You would draw more people in, which would make it definitely worth the funding, worth the money, and because they would be more involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, next is David Benai, and I did have one other speaker that signed up, and that's Don Lee Hananami. Or Hanami. Okay, David?
My name is David Manai, and
Hi, David.
I'm not here with my hat on as director of the Disability Advisory Committee. I'm here as a person, citizen, executive director of Vet House Services. There are 292,000 veterans in this immediate area, and commander of AMVETS Post 8, which goes back to 1947. And Ronald Reagan was one of my prize life members. Whatever your politics, that's just the way it was. And I came this afternoon back from a funeral burying a 3-term service corpsman. He was wounded 3 times in Vietnam, and he kept going back for his country. Paul Peterson. And he was very hard of hearing. Many of us veterans have either concussion or rifle or chopper aircraft damage to our hearing. I watch all of my news. Push my little caption button. I watch all of my news, and the entertainment that I can't see captioned, I can't understand, so I don't watch it. I don't watch it anymore. Cap to cap, that's a nice term. The sending of one cap to cap representative is 1/2 the allotment that it would take for funding captioning for Sacramento City. If you broke down all the people, I got that from Mr. Esposto. That agency out there, the Disability Advisory Committee, has been at this for a long time, Lois Diamond has been at this for half of her life, and she's in her very late 30s now. I forgot the courtesy of saying, dear Commission, I know 5 of you very well, and I know you to be very good people. The other 5 I do not know yet. You may be good or not good. I just don't know. You may have your judgment of me. If the levee breaks, for example, down in the Pocket area, I would hate to think that Isla or Robbie would go out there and say, well, let's have a need assessments, and then ask for our RFP, and then send out a bid to either sandbag or repair this. The American tradition, from burned barns to racing this country, is we make a decision. Day Cedar, we cut the tail off the rat. We actually make a decision, and then we find the ways and the means to do it. That's this country's way. Speaking of discrimination, profound discrimination, to say a good part of our constituency, sorry, you're not going to hear. I can't read my notes because I don't have good glasses. I can borrow yours.
I wish I could find mine.
The point is not stats and figures. You have staff to do all that. The point is to ask you to please make a decision, and then we'll find the ways and means. We, the commission and the constituency and the consumers and all that, will make the decision and follow through. You're our representatives. You're our leaders. We follow you for quality and assurance for rights. I would be ill-served to turn my back on anybody that deserves the same right. Good people, do a good action. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thank you. Okay, the last speaker I have signed up then is Don Lee Hanami. And if I've mispronounced that, Don, you correct me, please.
Hello. My name is Dawn Lee Hunami.
Hunami, okay.
Okay. Now, often I watch TV for enjoyment, and I'll see some emergency thing come up. There's a reporter standing there talking.
Some water?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can
we have water?
Somebody get a glass of water for us?
Imagine.
Time out. Take some time out. So give somebody get a glass of water. There's water here.
No,
Sure. Got a bottle. Okay.
See, it's dry in here.
I apologize. Okay, just imagine you are on a planet called Ith. Okay, here we're T-H-E-A-R-T-H. Imagine you're on a planet called Ith, E-Y-E-T-H, and you're all here on this same planet. And we're living in Sacramento. Okay, that's the city. You enjoy your life here. You watch movies. You go out. But just suppose an emergency came up. Okay, he's asking me to turn off my voice. Okay. Did any of you understand me? Did you know what I was saying? Any clue?
A little concerned.
No? Okay, let me repeat myself with a voice. A UFO is approaching. It's coming down. It's going to land. There are aliens coming out. They're shooting people. Civilians are falling. They're dying. They're coming. They're coming. Go home. Get to your houses. Go to safety. Go home. Now, a request, you need that voice, right? Well, we need the same thing. We need the captioning. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, very good example. Okay, that concludes the speakers. I want to thank all of you who have spoken. I want to thank our interpreters, our signers, for their assistance. I think obviously made some very compelling points here this afternoon. And now, if there's no other speakers, then I want to turn it back to commission members. I know we had some comments there by Ms. Collin earlier. Let me ask if there are other commissioners that wish to ask some questions. Then we'll turn to staff about how we might structure where we go from here. So, sure. Yeah.
And the testimony helped me very, very much because people want real-time captioning, and that is the answer I wanted. My references to the webcasting were for people like Warren, who cannot see and he needs the sound. And so, trying to reach both, and it's too bad that he's having access problems. We can figure out maybe why that's happening. But in terms of how we craft an RFP then, in terms of getting the equipment, I would be looking first and foremost for, I'll speak for one member of the Board of Supervisors, I would be looking for real-time captioning so that since our meetings are cast live, and then that captioning is also available for any of the repeats. And I would assume that all television sets now come with the ability to go back and forth between the closed captioning or turn it off. So I'm making an assumption. I have an extremely old television,
Since
but even it can do it.
Since 1993.
93. Well, I'm sure it's older than that, but you do have the ability to go on and off the closed captioning. I have to confess I rarely watch television.
But she's on it a lot, though. Channel 14.
I think, particularly for emergency broadcasts, it amazes me that emergency broadcasts are not immediately done with closed captioning, regardless of which channel they're on. That should just be common sense tells you have to get that word out there. And but if some channels, and for instance, if Channel 14 doesn't have any closed captioning on it, then the announcements are, if they're hearing announcements at all, it'd be if they break in and run across the bottom in writing. So that's where I'm coming from. I would like to see for the at least for the county meetings that, because I know this involves cost, and I know that probably each jurisdiction is going to have to come up with the money for it, and the money might be coming out of the fees that are coming in that provide this channel, Channel 14.
Okay, let me just continue down. Any other comments on this side?
Yeah, just a few quick ones. I have a pressing 4:30 appointment, so I just wanted to jump in here before I had to sneak out of here. But certainly understand the need for this, and it's really a matter of probably two factors, and I know we all look at this in a similar way, where there's always capital costs. Those are sometimes easier to deal with than an ongoing cost. But as some of the speakers mentioned, I believe where there's a will, there's a way. And I guess one question, just like an example, our local channels, Channel 3, 10, and 13, is closed captioning available on those channels at this time?
Yes.
Okay. So. I just want to get an understanding of where the missing elements are on our TV channels. So certainly supportive of, and I know this isn't as simple as we'd like it to be from the standpoint of this RFP, but as Isla mentioned, I think really just jumping into the live and tape would be my preference. So.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Mike or Ms. Miller?
I'd just like to briefly say thank you for opening my eyes. I think we have our priorities a little mixed up when you can get the Kings game and closed captioning and not something as important as the government meeting. So I agree. I think it's a matter of not if, but when.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Kev?
Not much more to add, just I hope we can get the estimates to the local jurisdictions as soon as possible.
Well, the plan is to bring that back in June. So it is going to be a difficult RFP. We think we can do it, and this direction certainly helps.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Ms. Sheedy.
Well, I agree. I really support this, and I'm not going to cap, so whatever you would have spent on me, put it in the kitty to start the fund, okay?
Okay, thanks, Sandy. Yeah.
I appreciate the gentleman's comments about just make a decision, so I hope the commission can direct staff to come back with a proposal to maybe something concrete, that we'd like to see 10 hours of closed captioning before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Bob?
Just a kind of a question that you didn't really have an answer for, I guess, but the satellite doesn't show education or government now anyway. Are they also not showing closed caption?
I believe satellite does show closed caption on some of the programming.
On some, but
yeah.
You know, if you're watching a movie on HBO or something like that, you know, then do they have that? Because you need the emergency to come across, you know. So I don't know what's there. I'm ignorant on so many things like that.
Most of the commercial broadcasts are closed captioned under the FCC rules. It's the more news type programming and government educational programming that is currently exempt. There are also some other exempt categories, but most, like the HBO recurring television show type programs, are all closed captioned, irrespective of whether they come through cable or through satellite.
There's usually a little symbol, Bob, that lets you know that closed captioning is available, and so
CC.
Yeah, and so you can flip your channel. You can to access it.
I do have one.
Okay, just let me see. Bob, anything else?
I'm done.
Okay, good. Mike?
Yeah, thank you. I'm also supportive of this, but are we looking at maybe an interpreter in the interim, or I'm not real certain what we're going to do in the interim, because obviously something like this is going to take quite some time. So I would just suggest that we look at other options that are available to us in the interim.
Well, and I think that, and let Bob respond here, but at least as I've heard certain commission members comment, and I think that one of the things that we ought to look at is what might be an interim step, because I heard folks say as much as they'd like to have it available, not only immediately, but certainly with the full range of interpretive services on Metro Cable 14 as well as the other channels, and I think we need to have some sense about what's going to be encompassed in that, but also what we might do in a stepped approach, and so that may be part of the report in June that as we go through, because it may take us, as Mike said, it may take us a bit longer to get to another point. I was also going to suggest that we did have representatives for the NorCal Center here today. We have others from the Disability Advisory Committee, and there are others obviously that are expert in this beyond those who might know the business side of it. And it would seem to me that we might even put together a task group to talk about. It might even encompass board members here, not to get overly burdensome with any procedure, but I think that maybe a way, again, if there's a will, and then find what would be kind of even a stepped approach, so we begin to do something more immediately than looking at some large number and then having to go through all the iterations of that as far as financing and so forth. Maybe there's something that's more modest that allows us to begin to do something that begins to get us to the point where we want to be at some future juncture, assuming the commission, and I do get the sense the commission wants to go in a direction, but there's a lot of unknowns out there at this point. So, I don't know, Bob, if you want to respond.
Well, I just think that I'm not sure about the time frame for implementation. Obviously, the earlier the better. I think that that will certainly be part of the RFP. So I think in June we should be able to get a good indication of whether it's something that would take a couple months or longer than that. It would depend on the equipment and the technology, what the companies think. I'm not sure if we've had any discussions in regards to whether our equipment is suitable for closed captioning or not. Our guess is it probably is, but that's something that we could certainly bring back. So,
one suggestion, and this might be a good faith gesture, is that I don't know who's having to cover the cost of our interpreters here today if they're doing it under some other auspice, but maybe when this comes back in June, the commission, under its budget authority, could cover the interpreters.
Sure. And actually, you're covering the ones today.
Oh, good. Okay.
And honestly, and that's a fine interim step. In other words, actually, anytime, and I believe this is an ADA issue, Harriet can correct me if I'm wrong, but anytime that anybody from the hearing impaired community requests interpretive services at any public meeting, I believe it's incumbent upon the public agency to provide that service at the agency's cost. That's what we're doing today.
Okay.
We can do that in the June meeting.
I think it's
certainly if there's a request for that, given that this will be a discussion in the June meeting, it's likely to be the case.
Right, this is a report back. So anytime we're going to be talking about this subject in advance of anything we do more permanently, I think that's that should be just a given.
Okay, I had a question follow-up on that, though, because, I'm sorry.
Okay, she couldn't see me.
It's just on the same issue, the interim issue. It's my understanding that cable has the capability to do split screen. And so you have in one corner the interpreter and in the other the meeting. There is no prohibition against every jurisdiction right now coming forward in the interim and utilizing the interpreter approach. I'm not sure about one of the other approaches, though, which was very different if you have to do the scrolling or the closed captioning. So, but right now with the split screen, jurisdictions could, on their own, move forward as interim steps. It has budget implications for each jurisdiction, but you could do it. And you would have to provide several at a meeting. Our meeting certainly would take several, because otherwise it's very exhausting for the people who are doing all the interpreting.
Okay, Diane and
Excuse me.
You do have that, correct? The split screen.
I will have to get some help from staff to answer that.
Okay.
Actually, of all the options, you brought up real time. That is one of our higher priorities, looking just to go back to one of the earlier comments. One of the other options that I wanted to explore, I don't think it's as optimal as real time, but I don't know what the difference in cost level is possibly having a signer and adding the split screen. We can do limited amount right now, but if we were going to do it permanently long term, I wouldn't do this as an interim before captioning, because the cost for the equipment we would need is probably about $35,000 per location.
For the split screen?
For the split screen. We can do it now, but if we needed to do it for signer, we would lose other functions that you're accustomed to seeing, and we would also lose camera angles. So we would need a separate camera switcher, other equipment. I talked with,
we need to provide that
it would be one of the options I wanted to look at, but I don't know that it's a good interim before captioning, because then you're just throwing
But you're going to
money
bring it back,
and
that's
money.
something you bring back in June, though, Diane, right?
Yes.
The range of things.
Yeah.
We'll look at a range of options, and hopefully what we're going to find is that the time frame for maybe the preferred option isn't going to be to the point where we need to look at anything else. But if we do, we can bring information on that as well.
Okay, Mr. Waters.
You might check, Diane may know this answer, but you might check with the city of Sacramento. We had it, I don't know why we don't have it any longer, but we had an interpreter with a split screen when we did our city council meetings. And like Diane said, you probably need another camera, but I'm guessing there's 3 or 4 or 5 in here that we could not give us as much coverage. Maybe you have one directed right at the interpreter. And again, are you familiar with the city of Sacramento using that?
I am, and I am.
Checking with
I am
them.
familiar with that instance, and yes, not all our locations, most of our locations, we can do that, but we do lose other functions, and so maybe we put up with that for a while, but
I would say as an interim.
Unless it's a cheaper, and we don't know.
Yeah, well, that's what I think
if it's a cheaper option, then we can look into it. But if we really want to go closed captioning, to be paying for the changes for one as an interim step is adding additional costs.
All I'm saying is it sounds like it's going to take a long time to do the closed captioning. So what I'm suggesting is that the staff of Channel 14 can look at the options from the technical side of it, and use one of those cameras, and even if it's only here and at the city council or where it is, even if we can't take it out on the road, we'll at least be serving the public by doing some of it.
Okay. Well, I think we've got a range of options here, and again, I know we're late in the afternoon. I don't want to give this any shortness of time and attention because I think it's very, very important. I guess I would suggest that let's give Diane and Bob the direction. I think they already have it sufficient, but to go forth with good speed and to bring back as much information as I can. And if it involves obviously getting some expert help through an RFP, if there's other ways to acquire that information and assistance that's more time prudent, then I guess you have some authority under your contracting authority to do so.
Can someone make a comment to that, answer to that from the audience?
To what? What I'm saying?
Yes.
Well, we don't want to get into ongoing dialogue, but I will allow a quick comment. So,
Okay.
Get to the mic.
you need to come to the mic, though. You can. The interpreter needs to at least come on the mic so we can get the. Yeah, and just introduce yourself, please.
Oh, my name is Larry.
Hi, Larry.
Obrey.
Hi.
And I came to San Francisco supervisors meetings where they had captioning actually running across the screen during the meeting. So you may want to check with San Francisco. And also Fremont. It's a very small town, very small community, but all of their meetings, every single one of them, are captioned live on the TV as well as there. And so you may want to check into those two cities and see what you can find out from them.
Okay, thank you, Larry. I'm just going to suggest, though, that we ought to then be prepared for allowing sufficient discussion time at our June meeting on this, and we always have the ability to call a meeting of the commission prior to, although I don't think we're going to have the next 4 weeks to have sufficient information to call a May meeting, right. But I think this does have some sense of urgency, recognizing we need to know a little more about what it is we're going to proceed with interim and or long term, and I think we've heard a lot of good information today, and I want to unless there's any other commissioners that wish to add anything, then Bob, you have sufficient direction at this point, and thank you and Diane, Harriet, for your work. I want to thank our interpreters for staying with us this afternoon. And let's announce the date and time of the next meeting so that folks that are here will know.
Diane, can you, it's in June. And it's,
can we narrow it down to 30 days anyway?
The first Thursday in June.
Which is? Right here.
Here, I have a calendar. It is June 1st.
Okay, so the commission will be here in these chambers, again, June 1st at 2:30, and we will have this as an agenda item, and so you're all welcome to come back and join us, and we have people's names and contact numbers, so in the event that we need to do some follow-up with any of you, please, we can utilize that. Also, if you wish to speak to Mr. Davidson and or to Diane or other members of the staff or commission, certainly we all have emails, and we can get that information exchanged here. So I want to thank all of you for being with us this afternoon, and this was not an action item today, but we will be back with potentially an action item come June, depending upon what's reported back to us. So.
Yeah, and there will be a staff report they can get,
yes.
Can't they?
Oh, yeah, and Ms. Collin made the point there will be a staff report that will be available prior to our June 1st meeting. That's available online, is that right? Or we can mail?
We're not online yet.
Oh, we're not online? Okay, then we will mail. I will make this commitment. For those that signed up today, we will mail them, the speakers, and anybody else who wishes to get that report, we'll mail them a copy of that in advance as well. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you all for your patience, and we'll see you. You're welcome to stay for the remainder portion of the meeting as well. All right. With that, we need to keep moving down through. We're going to lose a quorum here in a fairly short amount of time if we don't keep moving. So, okay. Next item.
We have item 4, which is staff status, fiscal year 0607 budget direction, channel licensee contract renewal, Metro Cable updates, and miscellaneous.
okay, I will do my best to get through this as quickly as I can. And there's not a whole lot of discussion here. I don't think. As far as the budget, we've had a lot of discussion of the budget today. Obviously, closed captioning, BestNet, possibly a channel licensees request, one-time requests such as last year, certainly are issues for the budget. Today, if anybody on the commission has any budget requests or items, you can make it known to us today or in the time between now and the next meeting, and you can certainly contact me or Diane. I do want to remind you that at the back of item 1, I did point out that there is a kind of a representation of this year's budget, so that can give you some indication of what next year's budget is going to look like. I don't know if there'll be any huge differences.
Bob, let me ask you, just in light of the last item and any discussion that may come out of your discovery and information that's developed over the next few weeks, we ought to at least note that may be a discussion for budget as well as any other policy direction. So I think it's important, again, as we look at budget, that be included at least part of the thought process.
Yeah, and I think that's key. And I'm not sure we're going to know the number until we get to the meeting. But yes, right. that you're right.
Yeah.
So
just as we're framing budget, to recognize that could be a piece. It could be a substantial piece, or it could be something less than that. But
right. So anyway, we do want to email out some preliminary budget information before the meeting, and we'll email it to the commissioners and also to the Management Executive Committee. As far as what information on this closed caption is in that will depend on where we are at the time, but certainly that will be part of the discussion. And with that, to see if there's any questions on that item.
Okay. Any questions on budget? Any items anybody wants to put forth this afternoon to be considered as they do that exercise? All right. If not, we'll see you back with the budget on June the 1st.
Okay. As far as channel licensee contract renewal, we're not aware of any major changes or requests at this time, so we are assuming that we will be back in June with 3-year status quo renewal for all the channel licensee contract renewals. And that's it for that item. As far as the Metro Cable update, I have a few items. In the city of Rancho Cordova, Metro Cable just finished a 6-month project assisting with the design and testing of a new video system as part of the new city council chambers. Also, over the last 6 months, Metro helped with the design of the city of Elk Grove's new video control room, and we'll continue to assist with the technical guidance as needed during the install and the testing. And then also, as just one of these projects is ending, the city of Folsom has just initiated discussions with Metro Cable staff about a new control room in their chambers. So there's been a lot of work, certainly in the cities, in regards to technical upgrades and such. And Metro Cable staff has been very busy on that. Also, lastly, similar to the past 20 years, Metro Cable will produce an election forums in collaboration with the Sacramento League of Women Voters. The forum is scheduled to be live Saturday, May 6th, and will cover the local races for the City of Sacramento, the City of Sacramento Council Districts, and Board of Supervisor Districts, as well as the race for the Sacramento County Sheriff. And just one other quick item, we have heard that the new van for Metro Cable is on the dock in the Bay Area, so maybe we'll have more information on that in June as well.
may have made it from the Bay Area to Sacramento by June, you hope?
Hopefully.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments for Bob on any of those items? If not, then thank you for the update, and we'll continue to move down the agenda. Next item.
Next item is item 5, elect chairperson, vice chairperson.
Okay. We have a schedule provided by Bob of the current chair. It's pretty obvious, and the vice chair, Ms. Sheedy, the rotation is there, and so it's up to this commission as to what you wish to do. Mr. Robert Waters.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Sandy Sheedy to replace you, if that's possible.
Oh, I'm sure it is. All you need to do is move over to this chair.
If it isn't, we can give him another year.
No.
Yeah. Second that.
Okay. All right. It's been moved and seconded then to appoint or approve Ms. Sheedy as the commission chairperson for the upcoming year. If there's no further questions or comments, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So ordered. And I'm going to
How about vice chair?
We'll need to do that too.
Yeah, go ahead and do it.
Okay, well, I'll call for what in the rotation then. Who would be next in line for vice chair?
Who's not here?
I left.
No, well, point of order, Don.
Yes, Robbie.
I thought we discussed this, I thought I brought it up a few months ago about now that we have, other than Sacramento City and Sacramento County, where we're going to look at the other agencies to see if they should be put,
in the
which
rotation.
I feel they should be put in the rotation.
And they had been when it was just the Folsom Mount and Galt, but now that we actually have obviously Elk Grove and
But I'm
Citrus
saying we
Heights
haven't
and
had
Trudeau
one here,
coming
have
forward.
we, Don?
Huh?
We haven't had one as a
No,
chair,
not for a
vice
while.
chair.
Well, no, you're going to hold the record, and I'm going to hold probably the record as longest vice chair and chairperson in the history of the commission. So
4 quick
we
years,
kind of
yeah.
locked him out for a few years. So.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I think did you look into that, Bob? Are we going to put them in the rotation somehow?
We certainly can.
We certainly can, and I haven't personally looked into that since I've been here, so I don't know if there's
Yeah, I
any.
think
discussion.
Mr. Shelby was the last one to serve as vice chair in 1999, and actually served as chair in March through 2000. So,
Well, if we went back to county city rotation, Isla would probably be up next as vice chair, and she won't be here the whole year.
okay. So we can either choose from ranks today, or if you want to leave this for item.
Why don't we discuss it and have Bob look into the rotation and suggest some rotation so we can get
Okay. That's fine.
other agencies involved next, and we can appoint the vice mayor, the vice chair next meeting.
That's fine.
But that means I have to be here next meeting, right?
That's right. Or defaults to the immediate past. So yes, you can be here. Okay. Well, very good. Then we'll do that. And again, I don't think I have to do too much work on it, Bob. I think just indicate that in the correspondence to the commissioners that we had this discussion that we'd like to get into the rotation, obviously the other city representatives, and that if there's interest, I guess we can express that. Maybe, again, it have to be decided in this meeting, but if people want to converse about that. Otherwise, we'll come prepared to have a decision on that next month, on June. Excuse me.
Okay.
All right. You want me to finish through the?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go through it.
All right. Well, we're going to take you
You're
through
doing a
on
good job.
with that to the next item, which is item number 6. You want to call that, Diane?
We have channel licensee grantee status presentations.
Okay, we have some folks who've been waiting very patiently in the audience, and call on them. We have Mr. Cooper and Morgan Fassell and Larry Eldridge all on this item. So,
Ron Cooper, Executive Director of Access Sacramento, and on behalf of Access Sacramento, Diane and Bob, we'd like to be involved in that discussion on how to address captioning issues. We actually, about 10 years ago, we bought a captioning device, which is basically a PC and special captioning software. At that time, it was about $3,500. And then, of course, the keyboard work to actually do it, as was quoted, is anywhere from $100 an hour or more. The one thing I was hoping to look into, and maybe your research will help, is changing technologies with the idea of voice recognition software. If you have voice recognition software that's connected then in terms of a captioning device, maybe that would drastically reduce the cost of having a manual keyboard entry. But I don't know if that device exists or not. But I'm here to give you an update on Access Sacramento activities. There's many things going on. First and foremost, we're very proud to announce that commencing next week, your community radio station, The Voice, which has been in existence for 20 years, will once again be heard on the internet. And the way that we're going about doing that is Live 365 is a company that charges a reasonable fee to take care of all of the streaming and copyright clearances. And so what we did was we asked our radio producers if they were willing to increase their membership rate in order to cover the cost of the Live 365 service and the computer necessary in terms of linking us to Live 365. Also, the broadband connection to the internet to carry the signal. And we're very pleased that we invited Comcast to help us with that broadband connection, and we wanted to thank Comcast and Morgan Fussell of Business Services because that's going to help keep those membership costs down. And we appreciate that. It's a donation of about $2,500 per year for those services to take the voice to the internet. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin.
The other issue that we wanted to speak to today is a handout that we gave a copy to each. It's entitled Joint Smctc Access Center Sacramento Comcast Sports Programming. And if I could point to the backside first, This is based on the successful grant that you awarded us this past year and will continue for one more year that we refer to as Hometown TV. What this did was permitted us to invite any and all events in the county to submit a simple application form that would be evaluated by the programming committee, and then the truck or our studio in a suitcase with crew would go to those events. And the goal was to have a geographic diversity and a content diversity of the many wonderful activities going on. Can't cover them all, but we wanted to cover 25. So you'll see there that 19 have been covered. The most recent one will actually premiere this Saturday at 5 p.m. on Channel 17. It'll be Mayor Heather Fargo's State of the City of Sacramento's address to the Metro Chamber. And you'll see that per the programming committee, there are several in the wings here waiting to come up. And so by the July 1 grant deadline, easily we'll have 25 events. Based on the success of that, one of the other cutbacks that was required in terms of the reduction in the grant a couple of years ago, which was very popular with a lot of folks, including I know some of you, was the Game of the Week, to highlight local sports, particularly at the high school level, throughout the year. And so what we did was we contacted Larry Eldridge of Comcast Sportsnet and asked them if they would be interested in working with us to make this proposal. And we're going to be speaking with your executive director on April 13th in detail. But basically the proposal is here. The idea is using that model of Hometown TV to ask for a significant upgrade to our truck that wasn't covered in terms of equipment grants last year, of a new switcher and new character generator capabilities. That would run about $50,000 to $55,000. We are asking a grant for reviving Game of the Week of $2,000 per 25 events, or $50,000 from the Cable Commission. With that, production teams will be put together, not just on-call folks in the Access Sacramento community, but working with the community college and state universities for communications interns to receive a stipend and to participate. The idea is to create the Game of the Week that will be carried on not just Channel 17, but regionally on Sportsnet 34 throughout Northern California and the Central Valley. And Mr. Eldridge can explain also how it could be viewed by the rest of the world on-demand sportscasting with the Comcast system. So it's an exciting opportunity to revive Game of the Week. We will be discussing in terms of the partnership that we're discussing between Comcast's contributions and Cable Commission contributions to make this happen. It'll arrive at 25 events that I think we'll all share in that excitement. And very importantly, if it was just all of those pieces, it's a lot of work to get to that point, but it also is a great deal of wear and tear personnel and equipment wise. So Comcast has also agreed that a % of the revenue that would be generated from this sportscast on Sportsnet 34 would actually go back to an equipment fund to replace equipment and help Access Sacramento's ongoing demands on the use of equipment. Just to clarify, to go on Sportsnet 34, this body would need to give permission for the Game of the Week to be seen on 17 as currently organized with our underwriting guidelines, non-commercial purposes. But on 34, commercials would be added, and it would be that revenue that would help with the costs of replenishing the Access Sacramento Equipment Fund. So we'll be talking with Mr. Davison, and we appreciate your consideration.
And I would just suggest, too, that I appreciate the overview. I think you've briefed individual members of the commission. I think Harriet maybe ought to be at least in the meeting, because it would get into, obviously, and I think I appreciate you pointing out, Ron, I think those of us who have been on the commission for some time recognize some of the discussions taking place previously relative to commercial underwriting of certain public access programming and so forth. And again, obviously this has some innovative approaches to it, but nonetheless, I think certainly Harriet, if she wasn't at the meeting on the 13th, but should be involved as this kind of brings itself forward for discussion, I assume, in the June context as it relates to budget and any policy discussion that may underline that. So I just wanted to offer that. So, okay. Anything else, Ron?
That's it.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Cooper? Were Morgan and Larry both going to talk on the same thing or different?
I just wanted to mention just a couple things
okay.
Regarding Morgan Fussell, Regional Director of Business Sales and Service for Comcast. I've seen many of you for many, many years. And we were very, very pleased that we could come to the aid of Access Sacramento because of launching Comcast Business Internet. The high-speed internet for business, we ride on the same residential system, but because we built our residential system out to the entire city and county, and it's such a robust network, we were able to offer to small and medium businesses different levels of business internet service. And so we were really pleased to be able to help out Live 365 Access Sacramento. And we have a designated group of staff in Sacramento, 15 folks that care for businesses. And we have specialized technicians, 9 specialized technicians that totally focus on our business services, our business customers here in Sacramento. Just wanted to left you one piece of information on our workplace product. That's how we, Comcast nationwide refers to their business product as Comcast Workplace. That's the product that Ron will be using for the next year. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Morgan, I'm just curious because I know that the gentleman, Mr. Cushman, spoke earlier this afternoon, and he was speaking to getting the streaming broadcast of Metro Cable 14, and he mentioned that his wife has a business in the internet aspects of technology and so forth. Is that something that, again, this is business oriented, but that you would assist a customer who, I assume they were Comcast customer, but you would assist even if they worked out of their home, assist them in trying to figure out why they couldn't get, it has to be Cable 14 in this case, but if there were other transmission problems or reception problems, do you offer those services, or are they
if they're a Comcast customer, we do offer those services. We will certainly troubleshoot and find out what's not working right and make it right for them. I was very curious whether that person was a Comcast customer.
Yeah, I don't know, but we certainly can maybe connect. Warren is well known to many of us, and maybe connect him with you or a representative from Comcast. And if he and Sheila are Comcast customers, then they can maybe follow up and might be able to troubleshoot the particular problem they're having.
Certainly would happy to assist.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions, Morgan? Okay, good. Thank you for your work with Access as well. Okay, Larry.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Larry Eldridge. I'm General Manager of Comcast Sportsnet, and I think Ron summarized the initiative to revive the Game of the Week concept very well, so I'll be brief. We're 18 months old. We're a regional sports network, as you know, founded primarily around Comcast's deal with the Sacramento Kings. And in the first 18 months, our initiative has been to program the network with professional sports, the Kings, the Monarchs, World Team Tennis, the California Cougars down in Stockton. Also with college sports, we have deals in place with Cal, UC Davis, Stanford, Sac State for college programming. Now we're at the point where we want to really expand and do some local, regional, grassroots high school programming. The problem is that producing live sporting events is or can be very expensive. So when Ron approached us a few weeks ago about the Game of the Week concept, as he has laid it out, seemed to make sense to us as a viable solution to revive the Game of the Week, upgrade the production capabilities, shine a better spotlight on the high school athletes in the Sacramento area, and then also, as a side benefit, expose that Game of the Week to a much larger audience than it ever has been before. Our footprint extends to about 2.4 million homes throughout Northern California, and as Ron mentioned, as kind of an additional side benefit, We're also carried on DirecTV and Dish, and so people anywhere in the world who subscribe to either of those two services' special sports tier could actually watch the game of the week. So I'm here really just as a resource if you had any questions. There is a little bit of an outside-the-box component to this with the advertising equation, but I'd like to assure you that the advertising that we would introduce on our telecast, which would not be in the Access Sacramento telecast, would certainly be appropriate for high school sports audiences. So.
Okay. Thanks, Larry. Any questions, Mr. Eldridge? Okay, well, I guess we'll hear more about I guess we've heard about the proposal, and again, as to how it fits into the context of our considerations, certainly for the request before the commission, which would be a budget request in part, obviously with the Comcast partnership and working with Access. We'll hear more about that at the June meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Larry. Appreciate you being here today. Okay. I had no one else signed up to speak. Any other channel licensee grantee status presentations? Or if not, then that will be under receive and file, so we'll move down to item number 7. That's our franchisee licensee, General.
Yes, franchisee, licensee, general status presentations, and we had some speakers, but they had to leave.
Okay. Well, we apologize again. We had some speakers for that, and recognizing we went pretty long today, and so we'll certainly reserve some time next meeting for them. So if there's no one here under item 7, we're down to then the last item on the agenda, which is public opportunity to discuss matters not on the agenda but within the commission jurisdiction. Was there anyone here wish to? We're down to 5 people in the audience. So with that, seeing no one come forward, I'll turn to commissioners. Any items that you wish to comment on or put out there before we come to a close? Bob?
Just one, everyone's invited to our grand opening of our City Hall, April the 22nd, that Saturday from 11 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon.
Very good. Okay. See you there. It's going to be a sunny day, right? Bob's shaking his head yes. Larry, anything you have? No. Okay. Rob? No. Okay. Ms. Sheedy? No. Okay.
No, thanks.
Mike?
Thank you, Don, for serving as
Thanks, Mike.
Commission
It's
Chairman.
my pleasure. It's a good group to work with here, and Ms. Sheedy will be in very capable hands, Ms. Sheedy. And again, thank you all for staying to this late hour. Thank you, Bob and Harriet and Diane and all our staff. Thank you very much. And with that, then I'm going to adjourn for the last time, and when the next come gavel to gavel, it'll be Ms. Sheedy in charge.
Thank you.